Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Best English Podcast. My name is Sarah, and I am so happy you are here today. If this is your first time joining us, I want to say a warm, kind welcome. You didn't find this podcast by accident. You are here because you truly want to improve your English and make progress in your listening skills, and I promise you are in the right place. Now, let me start with a question. Have you ever listened to an English podcast, maybe even this one, and then 5 minutes later realized you cannot remember what you just heard? You understood some words while listening, but soon it all disappeared like smoke in the air. That's frustrating, isn't it? You might feel that your brain is weak, or maybe English is just too hard for you. But let me tell you the truth, it's not your brain, and it's not because you are not smart. The problem is that no one has taught you the right way to remember what you hear. And that's exactly what we're going to fix together today. This episode is all about memory boost, simple but powerful techniques that will help you not only understand English better, but also remember it for longer. I want you to imagine something with me. Picture yourself 1 year from now. You are sitting in a cafe, and two tourists next to you are speaking English. You listen for a few minutes, and guess what? You remember the key points of their conversation. You can retell it to a friend later, or even join in the conversation with confidence. Doesn't that sound amazing? Well, it's absolutely possible for you. You see, our memory is like a muscle. If we never train it, it feels weak. But if we give it the right exercises, it grows stronger and stronger. Just like going to the gym, improving your memory for listening requires small but consistent practice. And the best part? You don't need special talent or a perfect accent. You only need to learn the tools that I'll share with you today. So, here's what you can expect in this episode. First, we'll explore why our brains often forget what they hear so quickly. Then I'll share step-by-step methods like active listening, visualization, repetition, and emotional connection that will make your memory sharper. Along the way, I'll tell you real stories, give you simple exercises, and guide you to practice. By the end, you will not only have new strategies, but also a new sense of confidence. You'll see that remembering English is not magic, it's method. Before we begin, I want to invite you to be part of this journey with me. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who is also learning English. And most importantly, stay with me until the end, because I've prepared something very special for you. You're listening to Best English Podcast, your daily step toward better English. Let's get started. So let's begin with an honest question. Why do we forget so much of what we hear? Think about it. How many times have you listened to an English video, podcast, or even a conversation and only remembered 2 or 3 words? This happens to almost everyone learning a new language, and there are a few clear reasons for it. 1. Passive listening. Most of the time, we listen passively. That means the words go into our ears, but our brain does not work with them. Imagine turning on the radio while you are cooking. You hear the sound, but you are not really focused. The same thing happens when you listen to English without real attention. The information enters, but it does not stay. Vocabulary tip. Passive means not active, not doing anything. Example, he was a passive student. He just sat and listened. 2. Overload of information. Another reason is overload. When you listen in English, there are many new words, new sounds, and different grammar structures. Your brain feels like it's carrying a heavy bag, and after a few minutes, it just drops everything. The result? You forget. 3. No emotional connection. Memory loves feelings. If something makes you laugh, cry, or feel surprised, you remember it. But if listening feels like only dry information, your brain says, not important, let's forget it. That's why stories, humor, and emotions are so powerful in language learning. Let me share a story. I had a student named Maya. She told me once, Sarah, I listen to English news every day, but after 10 minutes I remember nothing. She looked frustrated, her hands moving as if she wanted to catch the words, but they kept slipping away. Then I asked her, Maya, what do you feel when you listen to the news? She thought for a moment and said, honestly, nothing. I just listen because I think I have to. That was the problem. She was not connecting emotionally. Later, when she started listening to stories about topics she loved, like travel and food, suddenly her memory improved. Her experience shows us that memory is not only about hearing, it's about feeling. 4. No review or repetition. Another big reason we forget is the lack of repetition. Think of memory like a path in the forest. If you walk once, the path is very light, and it disappears quickly. If you walk again and again, the path becomes clear, strong, and permanent. Listening once is never enough. To really remember, you must review. Let's do a quick exercise. Close your eyes for a moment if you are not driving. Imagine yourself listening to someone speaking English. The words enter your ear. Now imagine a small basket in your brain. The words fall into the basket, but if the basket has a hole, the words fall out. That hole is forgetting. Our job in this episode is to close that hole and make the basket strong. Now that we understand why forgetting happens, the next step is learning how to fight it. And the first, most important skill you need is called active listening. This one change can double your memory power. We just discovered why we forget so much of what we hear. The good news is this: there is a powerful way to stop passive listening and turn it into active listening. This is the first big step toward remembering English better. What is active listening? Active listening means you are not only hearing the words, you are working with them. Your brain becomes like a detective, paying attention to details, asking questions, and making small connections. Instead of being a passenger on a bus, you are the driver. Vocabulary tip: detective, a person who looks carefully for clues. Example: the detective found the truth by asking many questions. How to practice active listening. Here are a few simple ways. 1. Predict before you listen. Look at the title of a podcast or video. Ask yourself, what do I expect to hear? What words might appear? This prepares your brain, like warming up before exercise. 2. Listen for keywords. Don't try to understand every single word. Focus on the important words that carry meaning. For example, yesterday I went to the park with my friend. We had coffee and talked about our future. The key words here are yesterday, park, friend, coffee, future. 3. Repeat and shadow. When you hear a short sentence, try to repeat it immediately, even softly. This is called shadowing. It keeps your brain active and builds memory. 4. Ask questions while listening. For example, who is speaking? What is the main idea? How do they feel? Questions wake up your brain and keep the memory sharp. One of my friends, Daniel, once told me, "Sarah, I listen to English songs every day, but I can't remember the lyrics." I asked him to try active listening. So next time, he chose one song, looked at the title, and guessed what words might appear. Then he focused on repeating just the keywords while listening. After 1 week, he proudly said, "Sarah, I can sing half the song without looking." He was smiling so much, almost like a child who just learned a new trick. His story reminds us that when you listen actively, your brain feels more involved and memory becomes stronger. Imagine you are at a cafe listening to two tourists speaking English. If you listen passively, their words flow away like water. But if you listen actively, you notice small details: the word museum, their happy tone, their laughter. Later, you can tell a friend, they were planning to visit the museum and they were really excited. That's the power of active listening. Right after this podcast, I want you to choose a short video or podcast in English. Before listening, guess 2 or 3 words you expect to hear. Then, while listening, write down the keywords you catch. Afterward, repeat them aloud. That's it. A few minutes, but very powerful. Now, active listening is a strong foundation. But to keep what you hear for longer, your brain also needs another tool: visualization. And once you learn how to see words in your mind, memory becomes much easier. We've learned how active listening can strengthen your memory. Now let's take it one step further with visualization, a powerful trick that makes your brain remember what it hears much better. What is visualization? Visualization is when you create pictures in your mind while listening. Instead of just hearing words, you imagine them. Your brain loves images, and it remembers them far longer than sounds alone. Vocabulary tip: visualization, the act of making pictures in your mind. Example: before the meeting, she used visualization to see herself giving a perfect speech. How to practice visualization. Listen and picture the scene. For example, if you hear, "John walked into the small, cozy cafe and ordered a hot cappuccino." Don't just hear the words. Picture the cafe, John's smile, the warm cup in his hands, the steam rising. Add movement. Imagine what is happening: people talking, birds outside the window, the sound of the coffee machine. Movement makes images more vivid. Use your senses. Try to feel the scene: the smell of coffee, the taste of a cookie, the warmth of the sun. When multiple senses are involved, memory sticks better. Let me share a story from my own experience. Last year, I was learning French, and I struggled to remember new words. One day, I decided to visualize every word. For the word chien, dog, I imagined a small brown dog wagging its tail. For fromage, cheese, I pictured a yellow slice melting on a plate. After a week, I could recall most words just by picturing the scenes in my mind. It felt magical. This story shows us that visualization works because the brain remembers images and emotions better than plain words. Let's try a small exercise together. Close your eyes for a moment, if safe to do so. Imagine you are walking in a park. You hear children laughing, see a dog running, smell fresh flowers, and feel the sunlight on your skin. Now open your eyes and try to describe it aloud in English. You just practiced visualization memory, and your brain will remember these words longer. When you combine active listening and visualization, you create a strong memory path. Active listening makes your brain focus, and visualization makes it unforgettable. This combination is like planting seeds and watering them every day. After you master visualization, the next step is spaced repetition, a way to practice listening again and again without getting bored. This method turns short-term memory into long-term memory, and it's one of the most powerful tools for language learners. We've talked about active listening and visualization, two powerful techniques to boost your memory. Now let's explore a method that makes your brain remember for the long term: spaced repetition. Spaced repetition means reviewing what you hear at increasing intervals. Instead of trying to memorize everything at once, you listen, wait a little, then review again. Your brain strengthens the memory every time you revisit it. Vocabulary tip: interval, a period of time between two events. Example: I take short intervals between studying to stay focused. Think of your memory like a path in the forest. The first time you walk it, it's faint. If you walk again after one day, the path becomes stronger. Walk again after 3 days, then a week, and the path becomes permanent. This is exactly how spaced repetition works. 1. Listen once actively, focus on keywords, visualize the scene, ask questions. 2. Review after a short interval. A few minutes later, recall the main points aloud or write them down. Third, review again after a longer interval. After a day, try to remember the dialogue or vocabulary without looking. Fourth, review after a week. This makes the memory almost permanent. One of my friends, Emma, struggled to remember English dialogues. She listened to a short podcast once, then forgot everything. I suggested she try spaced repetition. On day 1, she repeated the keywords. On day 2, she recalled the sentences. On day 4, she explained the story to her brother in English. By the end of the week, she could tell the whole dialogue perfectly. She told me, smiling, "Sarah, it feels like magic." Her experience shows us that memory improves when practice is careful, structured, and repeated. Let's do a small exercise. Take 3 new English words you heard today. Write them down, say them aloud now, wait 5 minutes, say them again. Tomorrow, recall them once more. Then again, after 3 days. Notice how each repetition feels easier, and the words stay longer in your memory. When you combine these 3 methods, your brain becomes a memory powerhouse. Active listening grabs the words, visualization makes them vivid, and spaced repetition locks them in long-term memory. Once you master these techniques, another key trick will make your memory even stronger: emotional connection. When you feel something while listening, your brain remembers it much better than facts or words alone, and that's where we go next. We've learned active listening, visualization, and spaced repetition, all strong techniques to boost memory. But here's a secret that many learners overlook: emotion makes memory unforgettable. Our brain remembers emotional experiences far better than neutral ones. Think about it. You probably remember your last birthday, a funny joke, or a stressful moment at school. Why? Because your emotions were involved. The same applies to listening in English. Vocabulary tip: unforgettable, impossible to forget. Example: Her kindness was unforgettable. How to create emotional connection in listening first, listen to stories, not just facts. Stories with characters, feelings, and small details are easier to remember. For example, instead of just hearing, John went to the park, imagine, John felt nervous but excited as he walked into the park, hoping to meet his best friend. Second, connect with your own experiences. When you hear a sentence, ask, have I felt this? Do I know this situation? Your memory works like a bridge between your life and the English you hear. Third, use tone, rhythm, and feelings. Pay attention to how words are said. A happy tone, a surprised exclamation, or a soft whisper all create emotional hooks in your memory. One of my students, Leo, was struggling with remembering English phrases. I suggested he watch short English stories about topics he loves, like football and music. In one video, a character scored a last-minute goal. Leo laughed and shouted with excitement while watching. The next day, he recalled almost the entire dialogue. This story shows us that when emotions are involved, memory becomes automatic. Imagine this. You are actively listening to a short story, visualizing the scenes, repeating key phrases, reviewing over time, and feeling emotions while listening. Your brain now has multiple connections for each piece of information. That's why combining these methods is so powerful. Try this simple practice. Listen to a short English story about something you love, maybe a hobby, a sport, or a trip. Focus on keywords, active listening, visual images in your mind, visualization. Repeat important phrases, spaced repetition. Notice your feelings while listening, emotional connection. After a few minutes, recall the story aloud. You will notice that the memory feels stronger and more natural. Once emotion is involved, memory is stronger, but we still need one more important skill to keep information in long-term memory: real-life application. Using the words and phrases in conversations, daily life, or writing ensures they stay with us forever, and that's what we will explore next. We've explored active listening, visualization, spaced repetition, and emotional connection. These techniques help you remember what you hear, but there's one last key step to make your memory permanent: real-life application. Memory works best when you use the words and phrases in practical situations. Listening is just the first step. If you never speak, write, or apply what you hear, your memory fades over time. Using language actively reinforces it. Vocabulary tip: reinforce to make stronger. Example: practicing English every day reinforces what you learn. So how can you apply what you hear? First, speak aloud. After listening, try repeating sentences in your own voice. Don't worry about mistakes. The more you speak, the stronger your memory becomes. Second, write it down. Writing helps your brain process information in a different way. Take a few sentences from the podcast or video you listened to and write them in a notebook. Highlight keywords or interesting expressions. Third, use it in conversation. If possible, talk with a friend, classmate, or language partner. Even small dialogues like ordering coffee or asking for directions give your memory a boost. Finally, teach someone else. Explaining what you heard to another person is one of the most powerful memory boosters. When you teach, your brain organizes the information and remembers it better. Let me share a story about myself. Last year, I was learning Spanish. I listened to a 5-minute podcast every day. At first, I could barely remember anything. Then I started speaking aloud, writing notes, and sharing what I learned with a friend. After 1 month, I could recall almost every sentence from the podcasts. I realized memory is alive when it's used, not just heard. Now let's try a mini practice together. After this episode, pick a short clip or podcast in English. Listen actively and visualize the story. Repeat key phrases aloud. Write 2 or 3 sentences about it, and if possible, explain the story to a friend or family member. Notice how much easier it becomes to remember the story compared to passive listening. Using what you hear in real life is powerful, but there's one more secret that makes memory nearly effortless: making connections between new information and what you already know. This technique is called association, and it's our next topic. So far, we've covered active listening, visualization, spaced repetition, emotional connection, and real-life application. Each of these helps your memory grow stronger. Now, let's explore another powerful technique called association. Association means linking new information to something you already know. Our brain remembers better when it connects unfamiliar words, sounds, or ideas with familiar ones. For example, I use association to remember English words. I link new words with pictures or feelings. Here's how you can practice association. First, connect new words with familiar images or concepts. For instance, if you learn the word forest, think of the park near your house. Picture the trees, birds, and paths. Second, link words to your personal experiences. Suppose you learn the word breeze. Think of a day at the beach, feeling the wind on your face. The memory becomes stronger because it's meaningful. Third, create mental stories. Combine several words into a short story in your mind. For example, yesterday I saw a small dog running through a green forest while a soft breeze touched my face. Your brain remembers words better when they are part of a story. Let me share a story. One of my students, Amin, had trouble remembering vocabulary. He learned words by memorizing lists, but nothing stuck. Then I suggested he connect words with his own life experiences. For the word festival, he pictured his last birthday party. For delicious, he imagined eating his favorite cake. After a week, he surprised himself. He could recall almost all the words without effort. This shows that association turns abstract words into meaningful memories. Here's a short exercise you can try now. Take 3 new English words you heard recently. Picture something familiar connected to each word. Create a short sentence or mini story with them. Say the sentences aloud. Notice how much easier these words are to remember compared to just memorizing them. Association is a powerful tool, but to make memory even stronger, we can combine it with context learning, understanding words and phrases in the situations where they are used. Context adds meaning, and meaning sticks in your brain better than isolated words. It's time to explore context learning, understanding words and phrases within real situations. Our brain remembers better when words are connected to situations. Hearing a word in a story, conversation, or practical example makes it easier to recall later. Isolated words, like vocabulary lists, are much harder to remember. For example, the meaning of run depends on its context. It can mean running fast or managing something like run a business. Here's how you can practice context learning. First, listen to short dialogues or stories. Instead of memorizing words, pay attention to sentences. For instance, I went to the bakery because I wanted fresh bread. You learn bakery and fresh bread together. Second, look for clues in the sentence. Try to guess the meaning of unknown words using other words or the situation. Context helps your brain make connections naturally. Third, repeat in similar situations. After listening, imagine yourself in a similar situation. For example, if the sentence is about ordering coffee, picture yourself in a cafe. Say the words aloud. I clearly remember a student of mine, Sara, who struggled with the word appointment. She kept forgetting it when she studied alone. One day, we listened to a dialogue about a doctor's visit. I have an appointment with the dentist at 3 p.m. Suddenly, she understood. She visualized herself at the dentist's office, checking her watch. From that moment, she remembered appointment forever. Her experience shows that context gives words meaning, and meaning sticks in memory better than isolated vocabulary. Now, try a short exercise. Take a short English video or podcast clip. Pick 2 or 3 new words. Pay attention to the context, who is speaking, what is happening, where it happens. Say the words and sentences aloud, imagining yourself in that situation. You'll notice the words feel more natural and easier to recall later. Once you understand context, your next step is linking words with actions, moving from passive hearing to physical or practical reinforcement. Using your body or actions helps your memory even more. So far, we've covered active listening, visualization, spaced repetition, emotional connection, real-life application, association, and context learning. Each technique strengthens memory, but now we take it a step further with action learning, using your body and mind together to remember what you hear. Our brain remembers better when we involve movement or physical actions while learning. Think about how easy it is to remember a dance step or a sports move. When the body is involved, memory becomes deeper and stronger. For example, by practicing English with actions, you reinforce your memory. Here's how you can practice action learning. First, use hand gestures while speaking. When repeating new words or sentences, move your hands naturally to match the meaning. For instance, for wave, wave your hand. For climb, make a climbing motion. Second, act out dialogues. When you listen to a short dialogue, imagine yourself performing the actions. For example, if someone says, "I'm pouring coffee," pretend to pour a cup while repeating the sentence. Third, combine it with visualization. Imagine the scene while using gestures. Your brain now links sound, image, and movement, creating 3 memory anchors for each phrase. Let me share a story. One of my students, Lena, struggled to remember phrases for her travel English. She tried listening and writing, but words faded fast. Then I suggested she act them out. For "I would like a sandwich," she mimed, holding a plate and asking politely. For "Where is the bathroom?" she made a questioning gesture. After a week, she surprised herself. She remembered almost all the phrases perfectly. Lena's story shows that using your body strengthens the memory of words and phrases. Our brain loves multisensory learning. Now try a simple exercise. Pick 3 sentences from a podcast or video. Listen carefully and visualize the scene. Repeat each sentence aloud. Add a simple gesture or action for each sentence. Notice how much easier it becomes to recall the sentences later. Movement helps your memory stick. When action learning is combined with everything we've discussed, active listening, visualization, spaced repetition, emotional connection, real-life application, association, and context learning, your memory becomes almost effortless. But there's one last secret that ties everything together: habit formation. Building a daily routine ensures all these techniques work continuously. Each technique is powerful, but the real magic happens when you turn these practices into daily habits. Our brain loves routines. When you do something regularly, it becomes automatic. Think about brushing your teeth or making your morning coffee. You don't have to think too much, it just happens. The same applies to learning English. Daily listening, speaking, and practicing create strong, lasting memories. Here's how to make your memory techniques habitual. First, choose a consistent time. Even 10 minutes a day is better than long, irregular sessions. Your brain remembers patterns, so consistency is key. Second, create a small routine. For example, listen to a short podcast, repeat key phrases aloud, visualize scenes, and write down a few sentences. Doing the same steps every day helps your brain form strong connections. Third, track your progress. Keep a simple notebook or use an app. Note what you practiced, new words you learned, and what you could recall. Seeing progress motivates you and strengthens memory. Let me share a story. One of my friends, Emma, wanted to improve her English listening. She started by listening to 5 minutes every morning while having breakfast. At first, she remembered very little, but she kept going daily. After a month, her memory improved dramatically. She could recall full dialogues and even use new words in conversation naturally. This shows how powerful habit formation can be. Try a simple habit today. Pick one short podcast or video, listen, repeat, visualize, and write 1 or 2 sentences. Do this daily at the same time. Over time, your memory will improve effortlessly. When habit formation is combined with all the techniques we've learned, your brain creates strong, long-lasting memories. You're not just learning, you're building a system for lifelong English fluency. Now that we've built strong habits, it's time to take memory to the next level by linking words with actions. Using your body while learning makes words easier to remember and helps you use them naturally in conversations. Our brain remembers information better when it's connected to physical actions. Think about how you remember a dance move, a sport skill, or even typing a password. Actions create strong memory anchors. Here's how to practice linking words with actions. First, when learning new vocabulary, act it out. For example, if the word is jump, physically jump while saying it aloud. For open, pretend to open a door. This creates a strong connection between the word and the movement. Second, combine sentences with gestures. If a sentence is, "I am pouring water," pretend to pour a glass while repeating it. The combination of hearing, speaking, and moving makes memory more durable. Third, add emotions to your actions. Smile when saying happy sentences, frown for sad ones, or show surprise when something exciting happens. Your memory strengthens when both your body and emotions are involved. Let me share a story. One of my students, Amir, was struggling with English dialogues for shopping. I suggested he act out each sentence. For I would like a coffee, he pretended to hold a cup and ask politely. For how much is this? He pointed to imaginary items and asked with curiosity. After a week, Amir could recall almost every sentence perfectly. This shows how powerful combining words and actions can be. Try it yourself. Pick 3 sentences from a podcast or video, listen carefully, repeat aloud, and add a simple gesture or action for each one. Notice how much easier it becomes to remember the sentences compared to just listening. Linking words with actions, combined with all the memory techniques we've learned so far, makes remembering English almost effortless. Next, we'll explore another method that makes memory even more automatic: connecting ideas naturally. Each of these helps your memory, but there's another method that makes remembering even easier: connecting ideas naturally. Our brain loves patterns and relationships. When new information is linked to other ideas, it becomes much easier to recall. Imagine reading a story where events follow one after another logically. You remember not just the words, but the flow and meaning behind them. Here's how to connect ideas naturally. First, relate new information to what you already know. If you hear a word or phrase, ask yourself, does this remind me of something in my life, a movie, or a book I know? Making these connections strengthens memory. Second, group similar words or phrases together. For instance, if you learn words related to food, apple, bread, cheese, visualize a meal. Seeing the connections helps your brain store the words in a meaningful way. Third, create short stories linking ideas. For example, combine several new words in a story in your mind. Yesterday, I went to the bakery, bought bread, and shared it with my friend while drinking coffee. This method helps your brain store words as part of a meaningful context rather than isolated items. Let me share a story. One of my friends, Nima, had trouble remembering vocabulary for his job. I suggested he connect words to his daily tasks and routines. When learning office vocabulary, he pictured his desk, files, and computer while repeating new words. Within a week, he could recall almost all the words effortlessly. This shows that linking ideas naturally makes memory stronger and more lasting. Try this now. Pick 3 new English words you recently learned. Think of how they relate to your life or create a mini story connecting them. Say the sentences aloud. Notice how much easier it becomes to remember compared to memorizing words separately. Connecting ideas naturally, along with all the techniques we've practiced, brings you closer to fluent English listening and long-lasting memory. The next step will make your learning even more efficient, reviewing effectively over time. Now that we've practiced connecting ideas naturally, the final piece before mastering memory is reviewing effectively. Reviewing is not just repeating words, it's about revisiting information in a smart way so it stays in your long-term memory. Our brain forgets quickly if information isn't revisited. But when you review regularly, especially at the right intervals, your memory strengthens and becomes automatic. Think of it as watering a plant. Without water, it wilts. With water at the right time, it grows strong. Here's how to review effectively. First, use spaced repetition. Go back to words, sentences, or dialogues after one day, then 3 days, then a week. Each time you revisit, your memory of them gets stronger. Second, combine active recall with review. Don't just read or listen, try to remember aloud before checking. For example, recall a story, repeat phrases, or explain it to someone else. This forces your brain to retrieve information and makes it stick. Third, mix old and new material. When reviewing, include words or sentences you learned last week along with today's lesson. This creates strong connections between old and new knowledge. Let me share a story. One of my students, Hannah, was struggling to remember English phrases for traveling. I suggested she review daily for just 10 minutes using the techniques we've discussed. She combined listening, repeating aloud, visualization, and recalling previous lessons. After 2 weeks, she surprised herself by remembering almost everything she had learned. This shows that consistent and smart review makes memory nearly effortless. Try it yourself. Take a short podcast or video clip you studied before. Listen, repeat aloud, recall key sentences, and write down 2 or 3 phrases. Repeat this after a day, then after 3 days. Notice how much easier it becomes to remember compared to passive listening. Reviewing effectively, along with all the other memory techniques, completes the system for remembering what you hear. With daily practice, your listening skills will improve naturally and confidently. We've reached the final part of our journey on memory and listening. Congratulations on staying with me until the end. Over the past episodes, we explored many powerful techniques: active listening, visualization, spaced repetition, emotional connection, real life application, association, context learning, action learning, habit formation, linking words with actions, connecting ideas naturally, and effective review. Each of these tools strengthens your memory and helps you remember what you hear more easily. The key to success is not just knowing these techniques, but using them regularly. Your brain learns best through repetition, emotion, and meaningful connections. Remember, every time you listen actively, visualize, repeat, connect ideas, or act out phrases, you are building strong memory pathways that make English stick naturally. I hope this series has given you practical ways to improve your listening and memory. Start small, be consistent, and enjoy the process. Even a few minutes each day, done with focus and intention, will lead to remarkable improvements over time. Thank you so much for listening and being part of this learning journey. Keep practicing, keep repeating, and keep connecting what you hear with your life. The more you apply these techniques, the stronger your memory will become. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with friends who are also learning English. Your support helps us create more content that makes learning fun and effective. You've been listening to Best English Podcast, your daily step toward better English. Until next time, keep listening, keep practicing, and enjoy your progress.